Hello. I hope you're not too freezing cold in your mum's conservatory. So, okay, gloves, yeah, gloves, good, good. Stay warm. So we are going to keep moving. So, yeah, so lie down onto your backs and have a couple of big breaths. The noise does seem to have stopped for a moment out front. So let's hope it carries on like that. So a couple of big exhalations. Let yourselves arrive on your back. Oh, nice to see Basil. Let yourselves arrive on your back. And what you're going to do first of all, when you have settled down, is to, as we often do, let your head roll a little bit to the right and to the left. Just letting your body soften and settle. Feeling the contact of the back of your head on the floor as you let your head ease to the right and to the left. And from rolling your head to the right and to the left. Then find a comfortable place to settle the back of your head on the floor. So if you've just arrived, we're lying down on our backs. We've let our head roll from side to side a few times. And then you're going to bend your knees and stand your feet on the floor, if your legs are long. So your knees might be bent already. Good, so feel the contact of your footprints on the floor, feel the back of your pelvis on the floor, and start to let your knees tilt to the right and to the left. So this very familiar movement, hopefully when we're doing familiar things, there's something quite sort of comforting and settling about them. And they also help us to really sense how our body is feeling right now. So let the knees tilt to the right and to the left. So once or twice more, let the knees tilt to the right and to the left. And then you're going to pause in the center. And you're going to fold your knees into your chest. Hi, Donna, nice to see you. I'm just starting with a little bit of lying down and a bit of rolling around. So pause, fold your knees in towards you, hold around your knees. Maybe do a little bit of rocking from side to side. So we're just really thinking about doing quite a few, I suppose, rocking movements to start with to, yeah, just give our body a bit of a massage. So we can rock from side to side. And we can also pause in the center and take our arms and legs up towards the ceiling and give them a shake out. Very nice. Always my favorite view. Wonderful. So arms and legs, that's it, can shake out. And when you've given your arms and legs a shake out, bring your feet back down to the floor. So knees bent, feet standing on the floor. And then cross your arms over your chest. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. And then start to rock your knees and your elbows and your head all in the same direction. Gemma's opening a very squeaky cupboard in the background, but I think she's finished now. Good. So knees, elbows, head, all rocking to the right, all rocking to the left. That's it, very nice, good. And those of you who joined late, I had some men digging up a hole in the front of my road, but I've asked them to stop for an hour. So they'll probably start up again, just as we're lying down for relaxation at the end. But at least it's quiet now. Good. Okay, from here, I'd like you to roll all the way over onto one side. And come to settle on your side. So you don't have to keep your arms crossed in front of you. Maybe use one arm to make a little pillow for your head, or grab a cushion if that's not comfortable. And you're going to lie with your knees bent. So your top arm can either come along the top side of your body, or your hands can come on the floor in front of you. And I want you to start by feeling the contact of your side ribs on the floor And then we're going to do this little movement. We haven't done it for a while, where we lift the bottom ribs off the floor. So it's like we're making a little tunnel underneath ourselves. So our shoulder and the side of our pelvis remain on the ground, but we lift the ribs off the floor and then we place them back down. We do this a few times. So if you were to take your top hand, when you're lifting your ribs off the floor, you could slide your hand underneath in that gap you're creating between the ribs and the ground. So you don't have to do that. It's not a huge space there. So just a couple more times. And then just settle for a moment. Let your breath come in, let your breath leave you. And then from here, you're going to roll back onto your back and all the way onto the other side. And I appreciate with this, you might end up rolling off your mat. So there might be a little bit of shuffling around. As long as you're not cold, you don't actually have to be on your mat. Yeah, but if you roll onto a cold floor, then shuffle onto your mat. So settle down on your other side. And so the same thing, use your arm or a cushion to make a little pillow for your head. Have your knees bent. Have your top hand either on the floor in front of you or along the top side of your body. Then see, how does it feel to lift your bottom ribs off the ground? So you're making this little sort of arch under the side of your body. Good. And if you haven't, yeah, that's it, good. That's it, B. I've got a very good view of you there. If you haven't done this one before, it might feel a little bit strange, but that's all you're doing. You're just trying to lift your bottom ribs off the floor and place them back down. Good. So your shoulder and pelvis stay in contact with the ground, but their contact might change slightly. That's fine. Make this little tunnel under the side of your body. Good. So it's almost like a tail wagging movement, but on our side, if that's what it feels like to some of you. Good. And then from here, just let the side of your body settle down for a moment. And you're going to roll back onto your back. And then you're going to roll back onto side number one. And when you roll onto side number one this time, you're going to lengthen yourself out on your side. And so now I'm propping up my head in my hand. You don't have to. You could rest your head down on your arm. Your arm could be long, or your elbow could be bent, or you can prop your head up in your hand. So lengthen yourself out now. Have your top hand on the floor in front of you. So we're coming towards this side balancing pose, Anantasana, but we're just going to have a cycle of breath, a buzzing breath actually on this side. So what I'd like you to do is when you feel that you've rocked a little bit forwards and back, and you found a steady place to settle, bring your top arm along the top side of your body. And we'll have a cycle of buzzing breath here and just see if we can settle and soften. So let your breath come in. Good, and then from here, we're going to roll onto our backs. We're going to take our arms and legs up to the ceiling for a cycle of breath, a buzzing breath again. And then we'll roll onto our other side and do the same side lengthening thing. So roll onto your back, take your arms and legs up to the ceiling, let a breath come in. And then roll all the way over onto side two and lengthen yourself out on side two. So again, we're lengthening ourselves out. We're being long here. You can prop your head up in your hand, or you can rest your head down on your arm. And have your hand on the floor in front of you. This is the top arm hand. And do a little bit of rocking forwards and back. So we're just trying to, by letting ourselves rock forwards and back, maybe find a more settled spot on our side. And then we can bring the hand along the top side of our body And we'll have a cycle of buzzing breath here again, and just see, can we settle here? So let a breath come in. Very nice. And then roll back onto your back. Take your arms and legs towards the ceiling again for one more buzzing breath. Let the breath come in. And then roll again onto your first side. So we're coming back on side one again, lengthening ourselves out. So we're going to come into Anantasana again and do some of the leg movements now. So you could start with your hand on the floor in front of you. You could start with a little bit of rocking forwards and back. And then the first thing we'll do, so we're trying to be in this long straight line. The first thing we'll do is bring the top leg into tree pose and see how that feels. And it might be that you want to catch your ankle, if you want to bring your heel right up your thigh. And you can see, I find it quite hard to balance in the tree pose one. If you bring your hand onto your thigh and see how it is to balance here. And then we'll fold this top knee in towards our armpit on the top side of our body. And at this point, if you're feeling ever so wobbly and want to bend your bottom knee and slide it forwards, you could do. But you all look pretty steady to me. And then from here, you catch your top leg however you want to. So it could be your big toe, but it could be your ankle, your calf, around the back of your thigh or your knee, or catch your trouser leg. So somehow hold on to that leg and lengthen it up towards the ceiling while we're trying to balance through our side. Good. I'm just thinking that I should offer the men a cup of tea. I should offer them a cup of tea to stop drilling in the first place, but at the end of the class. Good. You do stay quiet. Lovely. So have another couple of breaths here. Stretching into both heels. And then slowly, if you can, sort of make your way down in a controlled way. So knee back to your armpit, foot back into tree pose, and then two long legs. And then from here, you're going to roll onto your belly for a couple of breaths. So we're doing all this rolling around in all directions. So roll onto your belly and just make yourself comfortable on your belly for a breath or two. So you might rest your cheek or your forehead on the back of your hands. And it might be quite nice to give your pelvis a bit of a wiggle there. Just let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. And from lying on your belly, we're going to be rolling over to do the other side of Anantasana. So yes, when you're ready, rolling over onto side two. And one more time, settling ourselves down through the side of our body one last time. So we could start with a little bit of rocking forwards and back with our hand on the floor in front of us. So one of the benefits of coming onto our side a couple of times is maybe it starts to feel more familiar and we're better able to settle here. So from there, we can bring our top leg into tree pose. So one side is always a bit harder than the other. I know this is my less steady side. So trying to breathe and settle. Good. And then from here, we can let our knee fold in towards our armpit on the top side of our body. Have a breath or two there. So remember, if you are feeling really unsteady on this side, bend your bottom knee and slide it forwards on the mat. And then from here, we're going to lengthen out the top leg. So you hold that leg wherever is helpful for you. And sometimes this top leg can feel a bit crampy. So you can always bend your knee back down again. Yes, so that's what's happening, Kate, exactly. It might be feeling crampy there. So, you know, is there a way that you can straighten that leg without getting those sort of crampy feelings in the hip joint? Obviously, the more that you can support your leg with your arm, that will help. And yeah, it might be that you just don't stay there today if that's how it feels. If you're okay to stay there, stretch into both heels. And then we'll make our way down. So this position, yeah, so if it's feeling crampy, this position here where you've got your knee folded towards your armpit can be a really good place to be. And it's easier to sort of let the hip release and not cramp. Tree pose, back to lengthening your top leg out. Good. And then one last time, roll onto your belly and just settle onto your belly for a couple of breaths. So again, rest your forehead or your cheek, maybe on the back of your hands. Give your pelvis a wiggle. And this time, today, if you'd like to, you can do the one where you bend your knees and take the soles of your feet to the ceiling and tilt your feet to the right and to the left. Obviously, if you don't like that one, a couple of you are not so keen on that for your lower backs, then don't do that. Just keep your feet on the floor. And from being on our belly, we're going to fold into child pose for a couple of breaths. So if you prefer to have a couple of breaths lying on your belly, you could do that. So from tilting your feet, you could let your legs come down and just settle for a couple of quiet breaths on your belly, or if you prefer, folding back into child pose, or if you prefer, folding into kneeling. So you've got a few options there. Good. So wherever you are, on your belly or in kneeling, have a couple of breaths. And then we're going to be coming onto hands and knees. And we're coming to some cat movements, some tail wagging movements. So just feeling some movement through the middle of ourselves. So you can settle on hands and knees. And you can start to round your back to the ceiling. Dip your spine to the floor. So rounding and dipping in cat, seeing how the middle of yourself feels. And alternate whenever you want to with a bit of some tail wagging movements. So you can be wagging your tail, imagining you have a tail, wagging your tail from side to side. Feeling how the sides of the body respond to this movement. So it's a bit like when we're on our side trying to lift our ribs. We can also do that movement by swinging our lower legs from side to side, as we know, which I'm quite keen on at the moment. So you can do it slowly, look down the side of your body towards your feet. Down the side of your body towards your feet, or you can swing your lower legs quickly from side to side in little fishes. And feel how one side of the body lengthens, the other side shortens. Now, do a couple more, come back to cat if you like a couple of times. We're going to come on into our fox pose in a moment. So we're going to do a few things on hands and knees where we feel long through the sides of the body. Now, Sarah, you might want to be on your forearms rather than your hands. Maybe sit back in kneeling for a moment and shake your hands out. And then come back onto hands and knees. So for fox pose, we're going to lengthen one leg back behind us and take the opposite arm forwards. So this is a balance. We're trying to steady ourselves here. Steady ourselves, breathe ourselves long from our fingertips through to our back heel. You could stretch into you, point your toes, you could point your heel, you could play around doing both. We can swap sides. So when we're in fox pose, we're just noticing there's all these, our body is making all these little adjustments continuously to help us be steady here. And to help sort of keep supporting the length of the arm, the length of the leg. Good. I'm trying to feel long. Remember, it's diagonal, it's opposite arm and leg. So if you're trying to do same arm and leg, I'm finding it hard. You know why. Come back down, sit back over your heels or sitting up kneeling and give your hands a shake out. We're going to come on into plank and, if you like, side plank. I'm sure some of you will be enthusiastic about that. I was just going to show you that when you come into side plank, so from plank, when you come to side plank, you can roll, so you've got one foot stepped in front of the other, or you can bring your foot on top of the other one, which is slightly harder. So it's slightly easier if you keep one foot stepped in front of the other. If that's not good for your wrists, then just give it a miss. Just do an elbow plank, but don't do this. You could do a side elbow plank if you really wanted, but not necessary. So you need to do a really great plank pose if you're going to come on into elbow plank. So hands under your shoulders, lengthening one leg back, adding the other leg in. And then from here, from plank pose, we just roll one way. We can just roll on our feet and have one foot stepped in front of the other if we like. What we're trying to avoid is letting our pelvis sag down to the floor or stick up to the ceiling. It's more likely it's going to sag down. Good. And we have a couple of breaths there. And then we try to come back and roll onto the other side. Good. So I thought this would warm us all up a little bit on the cold day. Well done. Very nice. Gosh. Very good. And yes, when you come down from your elbow plank, sorry, your side plank, just maybe come into a child pose, and like we've been doing recently, come onto the hands and knees, round your back, and then rock back into child pose with that rounded back, just to help your lower back lengthen out a little bit more. If you prefer to be kneeling, then sit in kneeling for a couple of breaths. Just let your breathing quieten if it got a little bit, laboured during side plank. And then we're going to come back. We're going to do one more plank. Take it into dog pose, take it into a forward bend and up into standing. So Sarah, you could do an elbow plank and then come into your forward bend through a squat. Yeah. So one more plank pose. Oh, just before you come into plank again, maybe do this one. Maybe kneeling, bring the backs of your wrists together if you like, and give your hands a bit of a wiggle. My hands were just feeling they needed that. My wrists feeling they needed that. Okay, shake the hands out. And then we can enjoy another plank pose. So although we're going on into dog pose, give yourself 2-3 cycles of breath in plank. So we're trying to feel ourselves in this long straight line of plank, long diagonal from our shoulders to our heels. Really stretch into the heels so the backs of your legs wake up. And you're looking down at the floor, maybe just slightly ahead of your fingertips. That helps keep your neck in line with everything. And as you exhale, whenever you're ready, you can then send your bottom up and back into dog. If we don't move our feet for a moment, it feels like quite a long dog. And then we might like to walk our feet in a little bit just to make it a more comfortable length dog. We might like to bend our knees a bit. Exhale, let the head go. Let's see how it feels to be in dog. A bit of walking on the spot if you like in dog. And then whenever you're ready, you're going to be walking your hands in towards your feet, coming into a forward bend, letting your head go, letting your arms go. And then sinking into your heels, rolling up into standing. Arriving up on your mat and standing. And I was just saying, I hope it's sunny in Kendalby, but yes, just arriving into sort of the sunshine here today, which is really nice. So we're going to do a few balancing things in standing, and starting with the feet a little distance apart. We're just starting with the one where we come to balance on the balls of our feet. Yeah, so come up and just a few times when you're ready. How does it feel to bring your weight forwards onto the balls of your feet and then bring the heels back down again? So we're really asking the toes to bend as we come up. We're trying to feel we spread the weight across the whole of the ball of the foot. And when we come up and we stay there, we're asking the arches, to strengthen a bit. So we're going to come up and stay there. We're going to take our arms up so we can come and balance on the balls of the feet and then float our arms up and have a couple of breaths here. Let the shoulders be soft. Let the front of your body be quiet. Very nice, just looking forwards. Good, let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. When you come down, you're going to swoop all the way down with your arms into a forward bend. Of course, if it's better for you, rest your elbows on your thighs. That's better for your back. Or release your arms all the way to the floor if that's okay. Let your head go. Let a breath come in as you exhale, sink down into your heels, roll up into standing. Yes, so coming back up again. And we're going to do some little side lengthening movements. So taking our arms up and a bit of reaching up into one arm and then the other. So it might just be the sun, but I'm suddenly feeling a bit warm, so I'm going to go and turn my heating on. Good. So a bit of reaching up into one arm and then the other. And as you reach, you can shift your weight into the reaching side leg. And we'll also do the one where you reach up and then you catch your hand around your wrist. So I'm reaching my right arm up, I've caught my left hand around the wrist, I'm drawing myself up and over to the left. Breath or two there, back to the center, reaching up through the left arm, catching the right hand around the left wrist, up and over to the right. And then release. Shake out the legs. We're going to come back into the balance and we're going to do this mudra, Hakini mudra. So over our heads, we'll touch our fingers and then we'll bring our hands down in front of our chest. So we've done this one before. I think doing the mudras when we're balancing gives us something other to focus on than our foot. And it always helps me feel a bit more steady. So just ready yourselves, feet a little distance apart, bringing your weight forwards onto the balls of your feet, settling here. When you're ready, letting your arms float up, and then touching your fingers over your head in Hakini mudra. So each finger meets its partner, finds its partner, and then we let the shoulders soften. And then from there, we bring the hands down in front of the heart. And I like in this one to keep my elbows out to the side. You don't have to. What's probably most important is letting your shoulders soften. And just see if we can have another breath or two here. Very nice. Wonderful. Good. And do come down in your own time. Have a little shake out. I'm trying to think whether we let's do one more balance and then you can come into a forward bend. So we're just going to do quite a simple one-legged balance, starting with the side lengthening movement, see how we feel. So you're going to reach up with your right arm and start to feel that you're shifting your weight into your right foot and leg. So we're feeling long through the right side of the body. And then as our weight comes more into the right foot, we can peel our left foot off the floor and we'll catch the top of the foot or the trouser leg. That's it. Good. And let your knee drop towards the ground. And then from here, just let your hand come onto your breastbone. And just settle here. So this is all we're doing. It's just seeing if we can settle here. Have a few quiet breaths. Keep settling our weight down into our heel. Letting our knee drop, letting our tailbone drop as much as possible so we feel long through our lower back. Good. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. Good. Very nice. Come down, have a little shake out. We'll try the other side. So reaching the left arm up. Thinking about starting to shift our weight into our left leg. So we feel long through the left side of the body. And as we shift our weight into our left leg, it becomes easier to sneak our right foot off the floor. Catch the top of the foot, catch your trouser leg, let your knee drop. Bring your hand down onto your breastbone. And just see if you can settle here. So all we're doing here is, and again, if you're feeling wobbly and you need to go and take your hand rather than your breastbone onto the wall, onto a mantelpiece or the back of a chair, that's fine. Yeah? And it's fine to be here catching your trouser leg. You know, balances can, they're about us becoming steady and quiet, but actually they can bring up quite a lot of anxiety. So if that's the case, it's just much better to remove some of that anxiety by using the wall. Yeah, and then instantly maybe everything just feels a bit softer and quieter. So come down, have a little shake out, and we will now come into a forward bend. But yes, please always use the wall if you need to for a balance. So we're going to come into a forward bend, and you could take this forward bend on into a squat if you like, and then we're going to do one more balance, go a bit further with that one we were doing. So roll down into a forward bend. Of course, rest with your elbows on your thighs if that's better for you. You can bend your knees a lot. And then if you like, you can take the forward bend on into a squat by bending your knees more. Not worrying if your heels come up, but looking for that feeling of letting the tailbone drop, letting the back of the pelvis, or letting the pelvis feel heavy so our lower back lengthens out. Good. Breath or two here, and then we'll reverse this movement. So we start to send the heels down and the sit bones up. So we come into a forward bend. And then from that forward bend, either roll into standing or walk your hands up the fronts of your thighs. Now we're going to come into that same balance and then take it a bit further and through a different position. But let's just actually do the first stage, which is settling through our feet. So with your feet a little distance apart, you're going to step your right foot forwards on the floor. And we're just going to do a little bit of rocking forwards and back. Now, it might be that rather than doing, because we're going to be moving through the balance we did into another balance, that you don't want to do it here and you want to go near to the wall. So that's fine. Now, why don't you see if you can just watch me, to carry on rocking forwards and back, and then watch me while I show you what we're going to do, which is going to be from here, bringing our weight completely into our front foot, catching the back foot. But then from here, we release the back foot, bring the hands into prayer pose, and then reach back behind us with our back leg and tip forwards in response. So, we're moving through these two balances. Sometimes that helps us feel more steady. But if you prefer to go to a wall and do just the first part of it, that's absolutely fine. So from rocking forwards and back, let your weight shift into your front foot and catch the top of your back foot for a breath or two, and just let your other arm hang here. So see how it feels to be on the one foot, and then you're going to release that foot, bring both hands into prayer pose at your breastbone, and then reach back behind you, reaching your heel back, straightening that leg, letting yourself tip forwards. Seeing how it feels for a breath or two, and it's fine. If we manage for a moment to capture the balance, that's fine. And you can always, if you fell out very quickly, you can always try again. So shifting your weight into your front foot, catching the back foot. Then we release the back foot, bring the hands into prayer pose, reach back behind us. the leg. Good. Now, when I had my hands in prayer pose, I had them right sort of touching my breastbone, and I just find that that makes me feel a bit more steady rather than my hands being sort of floating in space. Step back so your feet are side by side, and then step your left foot forwards. So we'll see how it feels on the second side. Shifting the weight forwards and back. So this is really important. This is where we drop down into our feet. Maybe some of that busyness, maybe some of that anxiety around whether we're going to balance or not can just settle as we feel our feet on the floor. And then let all of the weight come into your front foot. Catch your back foot or your trouser leg just for a moment or two. And then releasing that leg, bringing your hands into prayer pose, reaching back with your back heel, letting your body tip forwards in response. See what happens. Very nice. And if what happens is you fall out, you can of course always try again. Think about it as a movement. We catch the back foot, we release the back foot, we bring the hands into prayer pose. Good. Very nice. Well done. Let's have a little shake out, and it might be that you'd, after that again, you'd like to come into a forward bend and perhaps a squat. So in your own time, letting yourself roll back down, either a forward bend or on into a squat, whatever feels good for your lower back, whatever your body would like right now. Good. Just a couple of breaths. If you go down into your squat, a breath or two in your squat, and then reversing the movement. Sending your heels down, your sit bones up, back into your forward bend, and then from your forward bend, rolling back up into standing. Lovely. So we're going to now do a few more side lengthening movements, and I suppose a little bit of a sequence. And I'm standing, so I'm facing the long edge of your mat, which you don't need to do for this first bit, but for the next bit, you will need to orientate yourself. So if it's possible to turn around easily and face the long edge of your mat, do so. But don't worry too much for this first bit. And we're going to take our feet a bit wider apart, so they're as wide as the narrow edge of your mat. So if you're standing the other way, you can get your feet that way easily. And then from here, we'll do these side lengthening movements where one arm comes up, we release the other arm. And if you like, you can shift your pelvis towards the raised arm side. You don't have to. You can sort of play with both ways of not shifting the pelvis and of shifting the pelvis. And it's really whatever feels better to you. And that's probably going to vary from day to day, person to person. Good. So 2 or 3 times from side to side. Remember, you give away the bottom arm. So we've got that real contrast between the sort of stretch through the side of the body and the bottom arm is heavy and floppy. Okay, we'll probably balanced ourselves out now, because we'll be here all day. We'll then come into a forward bend with our feet this distance apart. And I tend to like to come to that partway place where my knees are bent, I'm resting my elbows on my thighs, and then I release forwards here. So just sort of see how it feels. Really stay very rooted into your heels when you're coming into this sort of slightly feet wider apart forward bend. Let your head go. Just a couple of breaths there. And then sink down into your heels. Roll up into standing. So sorry, you probably don't want to go wider than this, but everyone else now, you're going to, this is when you might want to go the other orientation on your mat. You're going to take your feet a bit wider apart. Not massively wide, not that you feel you're in danger of doing the splits. And we're going to turn, let's turn one foot out a bit to the side. So you don't have to turn your foot all the way to line up with the edge of your mat. You're going to bend the knee of the leg that you've turned out, of the foot you've turned out, and that knee needs to be in line with your foot. This leg is straight. We're going to, from here then, let our arms float up to shoulder height. So we're coming into this warrior two position, which I've sort of become rather fond of in the last couple of months. So we're trying to feel very planted from the waist down and sort of floaty in the upper body. We can look along the front arm. So this is the bent leg arm, along towards our middle finger here. And then from here, we come onto this side lengthening movement where we come to lean onto the bent leg thigh. And then the other arm reaches over. So we've got this again, side lengthening movement here where we have a couple of breaths. Good. Now, from here, we do this little turn. So we did this, I'm going to have to turn around, otherwise I'll turn away from you. We did this a few weeks ago. So from here, we release our arm and we start to turn on our feet. So we can bend the back knee and come down here. So that's it, our back knee is on the ground. And we've got our back knee under our pelvis and our front knee under, no, our front heel under our knee. So these two right angles. And then what we do is turn towards the front leg. So I'm going to swivel around so I don't have to turn away from you. So turn towards your front leg. Sarah, I hope that's okay for your pelvis. If it isn't, then be kneeling on both knees and turn. Is that okay? Good. So I really like this twist. So the front hand can come rest, it's the opposite hand resting on your front thigh. The back arm can either hang or can come onto the back of your pelvis. And as you exhale, you're sending your back shoulder back. You're feeling really wide across the front of your chest, letting the shoulders drop. I just find this a really nice sort of twist for my upper body and a feeling of being open across the front of the chest. From here, untwist, fold forwards over your front leg, and then we're going to walk the back leg into more of a lunge. So you tuck your back toe under and walk your back leg away behind you on the mat. So we come into more of a lunge. So what we're feeling is that stretch through the front of the back leg thigh, as you know, in lunge. And just have a few breaths here. And then what we do from here is from our lunge, we come into dog pose and then through a forward bend and back into standing. So just adapt that to whatever works for you if dog pose isn't so good, Sarah. So from your lunge, whenever you're ready, exhaling, sink down into your hands, step your foot back into dog pose. If dog pose feels a bit long, of course, walk your feet in a bit. Have a couple of breaths in dog. And then walking your hands in towards your feet, into your forward bend, letting your head go. And then we'll roll up from our forward bend or walk our hands up the front of our legs. Very nice. And have a little shake out. So we'll do the other side of that sequence. So actually, before we do that, no, come back with your feet. So they're the smaller width apart. So this is when they're about the width apart of the narrow edge of your mat. And before we do the other side of that, we're just going to do three cycles of our breath of joy. So your feet are a bit wider apart than normal. Bend your knees a little bit for breath of joy. So we've got that sort of very planted feeling from the waist down. We breathe in. So on a single in breath, we do these three arm movements. So we breathe in, arms forwards. We breathe in, arms wide. We breathe in, arms up, and then we flop forwards. And then back into standing. We'll do that twice more. So breathing in, breathing in, breathing in. Last time, breathing in, arms in front of us, breathing in, arms wide, breathing in, arms up, and then good. And then when you come back into standing, take your feet a bit wider apart again. So we're going to be, hopefully you can remember which foot you turned out to the side, because from here, you're going to be turning the other foot out to the side. So whichever way you went last time, you're going the other way. And remember at this point, you're going to bend this knee. So the foot you turned out, you bend that knee, and you want your knee to be in line with your foot. And then we can let our arms float up to shoulder height. So again, we've got this feeling of being very planted, very stable from the waist down, sort of floaty arms. You can look along the front arm, the bent leg arm towards your middle finger, breath or so there. And then we'll come to lean onto our bent thigh with our forearm and reach our other arm over. So we come to this side, and I'm sort of reaching in this diagonal to find this length through the top side of my body. Good. And then from there, like we did on the other side, we'll start to turn and swivel around, come onto the ball of the back foot. So we bring our back knee down onto the ground, into this position where we've got our back knee under our pelvis, our front heel under our knee, 2 right angles, and then turning towards our front leg. So you want to be upright in this one. So we're not going straight into lunge. We're doing our twist first of all. So we're turning towards our top leg. That's it. Turning towards the top leg. Back arm can either hang or come onto the back of your pelvis. Try to feel here that your body is as upright as possible. I know it's not easy to feel steady through the top of the knee. My knee's not particularly happy here. But we can really enjoy this feeling of being wide across the front of the chest. Feeling we're moving into some of that tightness in the upper back. Good. And then untwisting, folding forwards over your front thigh. And then tuck your toes under, if you like. Walk your back leg back into lunge. And have a few breaths in your lunge, opening out through the front of your body. Good. So you can stay in lunge for a few more breaths. What we're going to do from here is dog pose and then child pose. So we're not going back up into standing. So if you're enjoying being in lunge, you can stay here a bit longer. When you're ready to move into dog pose, you can come into dog, planting your hands down, stepping your front foot back. And at that point, maybe walking the feet in a little bit. So see when you come into this dog, our last dog pose of the class, can you make it a sort of comfortable, quiet dog where you can have a few breaths? It could be with both knees bent. Can you have a few breaths and just really feel yourself in dog pose? And if it doesn't feel quiet, that's fine. From dog, you'll come down into kneeling or child pose, or you could even lie on your belly if neither of those are good. And remember again, if you're coming into child, it's helpful from hands and knees to round your back and then rock back into child. And obviously take your knees as wide apart as you like. Not so wide that you're trying to do some sort of stretch on your inner thighs, but just if it makes it more comfortable. And let's just settle for a few breaths. So from child pose, we're going to come into sitting with our legs out in front of us and just leaning back on our arms for a moment. So we're going to do a little bit of rolling back, thinking about rounding through our back. Some of our delightful boat Navasana balances that give our abdominals a little workout. And then we'll end up on our backs for some more buzzing breath and a few quietening things. And I was just thinking then how pleased I am that I decided to do some buzzing breath, because if the men start up with their drilling, then at least we've got some noise going on. So come and sit like this towards the front of your mat and think about how we can let our spine round out. So it might be this, to start with, this folding forwards, this looking down and seeing how this feels. And then from here we can start this sliding our hands to our knees and looking down. Leaning back. And then we can start doing a little bit more, so we can start keeping our hands around the back of our knees, letting ourselves roll back, looking forwards to come up again. So I was doing a bit of this yesterday and I wasn't looking forwards to come back up. And it definitely makes it a lot harder. So this might not be the easiest movements. We go down, looking at our belly, we let our feet come up, we go forwards, looking forwards. And obviously, yes, Tracy, if it feels too much for your back, you could do this one where you're supporting yourself with your hands and you're bringing one knee into your chest or both knees into your chest. So if anyone feels that sort of the rolling back is just not quite what their back needs, you could do that instead. Now, one of the things I've been thinking about with this one is often when we go back and let our feet come up, we go quite a long way back. But if we're trying to balance and then lift our legs up, we maybe don't want to go so far back. So maybe we lift our legs up a bit sooner to try and find this balance. We pick the feet up off the floor. Oof. So this is what I've been thinking about a little bit now, is I'm maybe not going so far back. So I'm going back a bit, and then maybe sooner I'm letting my feet come up and then lengthening legs out and trying to find this even curve. So we're looking for this sort of long, low curve where the shoulders and the feet are at the same height. And yeah, we'll just do this 3 times and then you can lie down completely. So, but that, at the moment, that's what I'm thinking about, is letting my feet come up sooner and then trying to sort of settle into this long curve. Oh. So yes, you can do one more if you like, depending on how your back's feeling, depending on how much of a workout you feel you want to give your abdominals. And then you can let yourself collapse down onto your back and just do whatever you like for a moment, whether it's bending your knees, standing your feet on the floor, folding your knees into your chest. Just, arriving on your back. So it can be quite nice to have your hands on the front of your body. Yeah, knees folded in is a really nice thing. You could have your hands on the front of your body in a couple of quiet breaths. We're going to finish lying down. So actually now we're going to do some buzzing breath, taking our legs up to the ceiling and lying quietly. If you need to put anything warmer on, have a blanket to hand, because we're going to start with, we're going to 3 times, from having our knees folded into our chest, 3 times we're going to take our arms and legs up with a buzz. So it might not be the time to put the blanket on completely. You could have it over your body. So yes, gather your knees into your chest and let a breath come in. And then we'll take the arms and legs up. So fold your knees back into your chest in between. We'll do that twice more. So fold your knees into your chest, let a breath come in, and then folding back in, and then one last time, let a breath come in, and then take your arms and legs up to the ceiling, have a bit of a shake out and a buzz. And then bring your feet back to the floor. And even if it's just for a moment, lengthen your legs out on the ground. So if you don't like to lie long, you might just want to lengthen your legs for a moment, give them a bit of a roll, bounce your knees, and then bend your knees and stand your feet on the floor if you prefer. So we're going to lie down now. This is the time you can put your blanket on. We're going to lie down now. We're going to do 3 more cycles of buzzing breath. And I've written in my book, quiet buzz, which probably sounds like a contradiction, but I just mean a sort of soft, gentle buzzing breath that floats out of us for 3 cycles of breath. So settle down. You might like to have your hands on the front of your body. That's it. Just make sure you're comfortable and warm, and you're letting a breath come in. And with your next buzzing breath, just see how much can you soften as the breath leaves you, particularly around the shoulders, letting the shoulders soften back onto the ground. So let the breath come in. And then one last time, again with this intention of really softening as the buzzing breath leaves us. So let the breath come in. And then settling with your quiet breathing. Just for a couple of minutes of letting your body rest on the ground and just being with the quiet movement of your breath through your body. Being aware of all the parts of your body that are in contact with the ground, the back of your head, back of your shoulders, your elbows, back of your pelvis. And letting the breath come in, letting the breath leave you. And allowing yourself this time of quiet resting, which is perhaps the hardest thing to do when we're at home. So let's see, just yeah. And if you a little bit of quiet, I shall ring the bowl in a moment.
So thank you, everyone. I was just a little bit mindful that the the digging might start at any moment. So yeah, we've been very lucky.
Thank you.